You're listening to the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe, a podcast of curated conversations with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development. Get ready for inspiring interviews, educational lessons, and thought-provoking discussions that will challenge you to execute something new and innovative that will drive results in your organization. And now, here's Dr. Tanya Lowe.
Hello. You're listening to episode 40 of the Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Using my results-driven philosophy of strategy, leadership, teams, and customer experiences, I help organizations develop their best-kept secret, their human capital. This podcast is designed to expand the conversation with C-suite leaders and those who support organizational growth and development, and what it really takes to create, develop, and maintain results-driven and high-performing organizations. Our guest today is DeLeasa Brown, President and CEO of Jireh Java House. She's known for revitalizing health information management departments and nurturing staff, prioritizing sustainable outcomes, and aligning change efforts with organizational goals. With more than 30 years in healthcare, DeLeasa excels in health information management. She's adept at building relationships with teams, patients, physicians, vendors, and clients. Everybody, relationships is her thing. DeLeasa is recognized for her strategic thinking and consistent, effective results achieved through meticulous planning. She is a critical thinker, a strategic planner. She understands how to resolve conflict and manage day-to-day operations. Her competitive yet solution-driven mindset underscores an impressive track record in problem solving and accountability. As an operations leader, a president, a CEO, DeLeasa leaves an indelible mark on healthcare, combining decades of experience with an unwavering commitment to excellence, innovation, and advancing health information management. DeLeasa, welcome to RDO.
Hi, thank you. Happy to be here. I appreciate this invite and this time to speak to your audience.
I am so excited to talk to you. We met at an event, and you were talking about executive presence, and I fell in love right then and there. And so I'm going to jump right in and ask you to define executive presence. What does it mean, and why is executive presence a critical attribute for leaders and professionals?
Well, I think it's a loaded question and a loaded answer, and I think it can be very subjective. But I think at the root of it, it's about how you present yourself, the way that you want to articulate whatever you're communicating. It's your energy, it's your passion, it's all of those different things that make up you and why people will want to listen to a thing you have to say. Basically, I think it's how you show up as a leader, as a follower, as a person that's adding value. And it encompasses several different things. And I think, when you look at the big picture of it, it's one of those things that you can grow, but a lot of charisma that's involved with it. I think sometimes it's either you have it or you don't, or you're deciding to have it or you're not. Wow. But it is definitely something you have to be mindful of. So a short definition, I don't know that there's really one that you can say it is, but it is a very deliberate confidence and self-assurance in order to really impact or influence whatever you're doing, whatever you're involved in.
Right.
Hope that helps.
It does. So it's how you show up, right? It's how you show up. And, you mentioned the word charisma. I'm sure there's some people saying, well, I don't have charisma, but I feel like I'm a great leader. How important is charisma?
Oh, it's super important. And one of the things, and I may not have this quote exactly right, but one of the things that I keep in my brain, especially when I'm in a new environment, new audience, just new people that I'm not familiar with, I try to make sure that I'm bringing my energy to influence whatever that environment is, so that I'm not necessarily influenced by the environment. Because sometimes when you come into certain situations, certain meetings, whatever it is, you can tell there's an energy there, and maybe a negative energy, maybe there's tension, maybe there's something that says this meeting is run by this person over here, and they always come with drama or whatever.
Right.
Whatever the energy is in the room when you walk in, if it's not set at a place where it's going to make that a productive meeting, your immediate thought needs to be, how do I influence this energy? How do I change this? So I come into a place thinking that usually, because I don't want to be non-productive or not get what I would like to accomplish done. And sometimes I've got to move the energy very quickly. And I feel like charisma helps me do that because I'm not afraid to speak. I've decided not to be afraid to speak, and influence in the way that I think would make sense for whatever we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So what I just heard you say was it's a productivity superpower. It's using your intuition, and it's an energy shifter. That's what I heard you say.
Hey, I love it. You summed it up perfectly because all of that is at play at any given time. And it's not just in a big meeting, it's in those one-on-ones that you may have with people. It's in wherever you have an opportunity as a leader to influence.
Yeah.
So be the one that influences the environment.
Yeah. So DeLeasa, are there cultural or gender differences in how executive presence is perceived or demonstrated?
Think so, absolutely. One of the things that I think has heavily influenced how I show up or present, and maybe that takes away some of those fears that some people may have, is that I did grow up in the church. So culturally, you getting up there saying your Easter speeches, or you're the Sunday school secretary, and they're saying, take your time, sister so and so. Like all of those things encourage you and teach you honestly how to start presenting and show up in spite of fear, show up and do it no matter how hard it is, because you've had that encouragement. So when you get out here in the workplace and in these workplace streets, and you are in environments where there's intimidation, where there's an energy that maybe you're not supposed to be there, or maybe there's something that makes you feel uncomfortable, like you're not supposed to be at the table. Those are the things that I pull from. I pull from the positive women influences that I've had growing up, watching my mom, watching my aunts and cousins, and then being in the military. I got to further that as part of how um, I try to make sure that I'm confident and self-assured, and knowing that at the end of the day, this is my opportunity to make or break it, or change it, or not change it, to influence, to not influence. That comes, I think, from a cultural background of being told I can do it and that I'm enough. I can get in there and I deserve to be there. So I've heard that all of my life. So me being at the table and being part of things and influencing in the way that I do is not a surprise to me. It's part of what I walk in, because that's what I believe. I've been told all my life that I'm called to do certain things. So
Yeah.
I walk in it. I own it.
I can so relate to that. Growing up in South Georgia, growing up in the church, my mother was a school teacher. So, I've been speaking since I was like probably 5, and you hear those messages and you carry those messages, that you are enough. You show up bold wherever you are. And so, for people who, because what I'm hearing is, it's confidence. It's showing up knowing that, yes, you deserve to be there. yes, you deserve to use your voice. If you're going to be there, use your voice.
Right.
And be confident, about what the value that you add.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about for people who they may not have had the upbringing that we had, and
Yes.
they've got they're smart, they can add value, but their presence may be holding them back.
Yeah, that's always such an important question. It's like you've got to first be real with yourself. Like
Mm,
first, determine what is it that you feel like you're missing. You've got to know that because no one's going to make you believe something that you don't already believe. So that's the part right there. You've got to get to what do you actually believe? What do you believe? Well, I believe I'm not confident and have the charisma to actually get in there and do that. All right, first order of business, change what you believe. And this is where that statement comes in, the fake it till you make it.
mm-hmm.
So sometimes it doesn't feel like belief. It doesn't feel like you're already, you're there where I can say I'm confident. But you've got to speak it over yourself. You've got to say it until you actually believe, because nothing plays out in the way that you need it to. That's going to demonstrate or show all of what we're talking about here,
Right.
unless you believe it first. Change the belief system. So, scripturally, I think about already having the victory. Scriptures that talk about,
Yeah.
with God, we already have the victory. And then the other one that I pair with that is, through all things, um, God works all things out for our good,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if those are two things I believe, I already know I have the victory and God works everything out for my good, whether it's a situation I'm uncomfortable with or whether it's one I'm coming in and I'm just like, yeah, I know this and this is great. I can do this. Both scenarios play out the same way. I already have the victory and God
Mm-hmm.
works everything out for my good. Put the two together and change the belief system. The belief
Mm.
system it needs to be that I already have the victory and God works everything out for my good. So it doesn't matter what I enter into. It doesn't matter if I know about this particular thing or not. It doesn't matter if there's an obstacle, if there's a mean person that doesn't want to let me get to that next level, whether I think I don't have confidence or not. None of that matters.
Mm.
What matters is what you believe and what you change your belief to. So
Mm.
that's my answer to those people that may not feel that they naturally have certain organic qualities, because there's a lot of things I don't have organically, but I have to decide something. I got to figure out, well, do I want to have that or not? Do I
Right.
feel it's important for me to have? And if I feel it is important and I want to have it, then there's some work that has to go in there. But at the end of the day, I know what I believe. I have the victory and God works everything out for my good. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, guys, you're listening to this, decide what it's so easy to take on the mindset of they won't allow me to do this or I don't have enough. And basically, I just feel like those are all lies. You do have enough because you are where you are. And so you just have to decide.
decide.
It's like you get those shoes and when you were little and they might not have fit, but if you make the decision, you can grow into that new mindset, just like you grew into those
Yes.
shoes.
Yes, and you know what? Sometimes we can be so driven by feelings, and that's the part that stops us and puts blockers on our next, whatever the next is. So
Yes.
I say reverse that kind of stuff. Let your feelings catch up with your decisions. Make the
Mm.
decision, then let your feelings run behind trying to figure out what to do to catch up with it. But walk in what your decision is, what your belief is. So I don't feel like a lot of things, I don't feel like sometimes I don't feel like some of the people that I have to be involved with to get business done. I don't feel like that energy. I don't feel like, the work I have to do or rework that has to be done because of poor decisions on the part of others.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it. But at the end of the day, the decision is that I'm going to show up and be my best and do what I can to influence a positive outcome all the time,
Yeah.
anytime. That's my portion, what God is wanting me to do. my feelings will catch up with it, because at the end of it, I'm excited that the outcome was what it was, that we did the work and got through the challenge and got through the hard part. My feelings caught up with it because a smile showed up and there was happiness and joy because we got it done. And I didn't think so much about the fact that, well, we could have got it done faster because this person didn't do what they were supposed, all of the stuff that gets in the way and causes us to kind of wallow in feelings. So that's part of my thought process too. We got to get rid of feelings driving and emotions driving everything that we do.
Right. I love it. So I've decided, I've made the decision that I'm going to step into my confidence. I'm going to reconfigure my mindset, right? Are there any misconceptions about executive presence? So now that someone is walking in their executive, they've heard this podcast and they're like, yeah, I'm just kidding. Are there any misconceptions?
I think sometimes the misconception that I think is out there is that it's all about image and the way you look, the way you dress, and all of these outwardly things that really does not speak to any depth or anything like that. I think we've got to get out of the mindset that a person only has presence or influence based on maybe even their background, what they look like. You know what I'm saying? Because I've seen people with executive, and I just call it presence. I don't know. Sometimes when we put the business piece on there, it sounds like it needs to look a certain way. But I've met people that, that has the attention of a whole room and had on Bermuda shorts and a flowery Hawaiian shirt. Why? Because they had other stuff that showed that the presence was there, the charisma was there, the confidence was there, the credibility was there. They knew what they were talking about. They were prepared. They had clarity in what they were communicating. And then they were able to connect with the people, and they maintained composure. So all of a sudden, image and what you show up looking like, and whether you wear long nails or short nails, or you wear a uniform versus Bermuda shorts and a Hawaiian shirt, your presence goes before you, So I think that is part of what we've got to just kind of accept, that it's a lot of ingredients that go in there. And that's why I think it's subjective sometimes. But credibility for me, it's very important to me to be credible, to not only just because of my title, I can get a seat at the table, but when I'm at the table, you believe and trust what I'm telling you. So I work hard to be credible. I study. If I don't know a client or know the information I need to have about a client, I study that so that I come to the meeting already prepared and knowing some things, so that you have some credibility in me. I believe in connection. I like looking people in the eyes and let's just talk, because there's power in connection when people feel comfortable with you. I'm conscious of those things. I maintain composure. I think it's very off-putting when people have those moments where they can't hold their emotions. They're obviously upset or obviously frustrated, and they think people are supposed to respond to that. When you're putting fear in them, you're not embracing or engaging or bringing them towards you. The respect is not there because they actually trust and believe you. It's because they fear the outcome of that attitude and that energy that you're bringing.
Right.
So it's all of the different pieces that are in there for me. And I think all of it you have to do well.
And develop over time. It sounds like executive presence or presence is tied very closely to emotional intelligence as well.
Yes, ma'am. It is. And that's how people, in my opinion, give it away so quickly, because in a moment they forget that at the root of it, you're dealing with people. It's not the processes and all of that stuff that may fail sometimes. That is what it is. But the learning opportunity with the people that's actually experiencing it. You don't get to snap on them, go off on them because a mistake was made. How do we learn from this? How do we grow from it? That's the connection part. That person will say, yeah, she or he has presence in my life. That's presence. That's what it looks like to me. It's not the one that is, I can't believe this was screwed up again. And I've told you this 50 million times and you still don't get it. The abuse and all of that stuff does not work in demonstrating presence and being a leader.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, and I rambled there for a minute.
No, I got it, because all of these things affect how you show up, will definitely affect how you lead. And so if you lead from a place of intimidation, if you lead from passive aggressiveness or aggressiveness, it is going to affect your leadership ability. It's going to affect how you engage with your team. People, they may get the work might get done, but they're not going to respect you. And within that, John Maxwell always says, people do what they see. What type of leaders are you breeding?
Yes.
What type of leaders are you creating when you behave in that way? So I know for some people listening to this episode, there are probably going to be some things that you need to unlearn and relearn as it relates to, how do I show up as a leader? What are some things that I need to do that can totally change the trajectory of your outcomes,
Absolutely. Because attitude truly does reflect leadership. So whenever you see someone showing low emotional intelligence, or just kind of operating in that low space, they've had a leader along the way that influenced them in that way. And then they may have saw some reward. They may have saw some comfort in that. And so they emulate it. And they take on a false belief that person is successful and that is how they got there. When the reality is they're probably not. There's probably a lot of hard things going on behind the scenes that you're not aware of. And people responded in fear, and they thought that was actual respect, and it wasn't. So attitude truly does reflect leadership. So we've got to, and as leaders, we've got to know that everyone's always watching. Be mindful of that. Be mindful of the power of influence and the fact that you're shaping the next leader. When we think about succession planning and all of that, how do I hold someone accountable to starting a meeting on time or having an agenda for a meeting when I've not demonstrated that along the way? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
When I've not shown or demonstrated how to properly put minutes together to show the highlights of what was supposed to be covered in that meeting, what was actually covered, and what were the action items or outcome from that meeting. If they don't know how to do any of that, how to show up at a meeting and not overtalk people, how they can be at the table with a voice to be able to influence. If, like, I have leaders that may go to meetings for me, it's important to me that they're prepared for those meetings, because if you're just going to get there and you're not going to say anything, not have any type of influence or contribution to the conversation, I might as well have just missed the meeting and asked somebody else for notes from it. Right. And you know what I'm saying? So it's important that we prepare our leaders for what they're going to experience. And some styles are different, leadership styles, and I understand this, but some leaders want the person already come prepared and know all of these things so that they can just send them to a meeting and they're already ready. That's not what happens.
That's not what we're seeing. That's not what's going to happen. Leaders, you're going to have to do some developing.
Yeah, prepare them. Yes. Because these are the folks. I mean, look, I'm on my way out from a retirement standpoint. I have other things that, God is birthing in me to do. I need the leaders that are in my current organization to be ready for their next level. Yes. But oh my gosh, what a disservice it would be to them if I just left them out there to just do it without any prep. So I have conversations with them. They attend meetings with me. They
Yeah.
see how I operate. But it's not for me to create mini me's. It's for me to just say authentically, this is how I show up. Here's the response I get. And some good, some bad, but this is the whole gamut of what it looks like. Pick what you like out of that, develop it, but I'm gonna show you everything.
Yeah.
And then you've got to decide authentically what works for you. Because
Yeah.
you don't have my cadence, you don't have my energy. You
So don't
have your
try to emulate me, but
right.
this is a learning. You're placing them in an environment where they can learn, where they can critically think, and where they can create their own presence. So you're modeling,
Exposure.
this is what I do, but you don't have to emulate me.
Right. The I think as a leader, we need to expose. Exposure is so important. Expose people to things that are what their next level will look like. Oh my gosh, when I'm invited to things that my senior may invite me to, I'm always looking and listening to how people are responding to hard questions. I love when I hear things like, that's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. That's not something I've actually delved into. But with you bringing it up, that's something that I want to go and take a look at. I want to dive into that a bit more instead of just giving an answer. To me, that's somebody that's ready to show up in their authentic self in that place that shows vulnerability. And it shows you don't know everything.
And you don't have to.
And you don't have to. So I love when I see that, because I believe those are the authentic, and I perk up and I'm listening, because you know what, that leader right there, that's the person that I know that I can learn a lot from that person.
Yeah.
Because there's humility there. There's vulnerability there. There's real talk there.
It takes vulnerability, honesty, humility to be a leader. It takes that,
all of it.
And so, I didn't grow up in that type of environment. As I started my career, I didn't see any of this stuff that I'm teaching and taking into organizations. I didn't see any of that. But we're so in a different place in the workforce now, and so we've got to we have to develop our workforce. We have to lead them in a way that will be productive for the future of the organization. And when you do that, that takes care of the bottom line. It takes care of the bottom line.
It really does. You've got to invest in your people. They're your most valuable resource. I learned that as an 18-year-old going into the military and growing pretty fast in terms of rank, being promoted. So I was promoted in leadership faster than my age and experience really had me ready for.
Yeah.
I think that makes sense to you, how I do. Okay. So in thinking that, I picked up on things that was repeated to me, and I learned to believe that. I didn't know it yet, but I believed it. So that was one of the first things. People are our most valuable resource. You take care of your people, they will take care of you and each other. And so when I came out of the military and dealing, coming into civilian environments and work in the workforce from a civilian standpoint, that was a little different because I didn't necessarily see that. But I had years of learning and growing in the military at a younger age to know better that they're missing the boat on taking care of their people.
Yeah.
So that means training. You got to spend time training. Don't just what's that statement? I think I've heard it in the South more than anything, but some development by fire. It's something to do with kind of just throwing them out there and letting them kind of.
Yes.
It's something with fire. It's so unfair. That is so unfair. You've got to, and maybe my way of learning it was more intense because on the other side of not taking care of your people is you die. They're not trained. They don't have your back. You die out there in the field at war. You've got to take care of your people so that they know what to do in situations. If they don't know, you die.
Wow.
you can get killed, the enemy could kill, it was so intense. Now in civilian world, I don't necessarily have to deal with it in that way, but the equivalent is processes failed. Rework is necessary. Money is spent that could have been saved if we had of developed the training, if we had have taken time to follow up and debrief, figure out what went right, what went wrong, and what do we need to
Right.
develop and do better. Those are the equivalents of the military's you die.
Yeah, yeah. Or you're constantly in that rehiring cycle. People
Yes,
people are always
yes.
leaving. Yes, yes.
Yeah, and people accept turnover like it's, we used to capture turnover percentages like, that was a meaningful metric. We don't capture it as much. I think at least in places that I've worked in more, like over the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
it's a metric that you need to know, but the reason behind it is not captured as much as it used to be. Because I think surveys and things that we do in the organization to see how people are responding and feeling about their work environment, we do see a higher occurrence of people leaving because of the leaders, not because of the work or the place itself. It's
Yeah.
because of their leaders not being trained, not feeling like they're given adequate direction, and all of these different things. Leaders not leading by example. That's why people are leaving.
Yeah.
But the turnover, you hear leaders say, it's the area. It's just,
Yeah.
it's, it's the
I can't
pay.
think of the quote, DeLeasa, but I can't think of who said it originally, and John Maxwell says it all the time. People leave people, not organizations.
Yes, yes, and
Yes.
that's the truth of it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the survey results when you're doing the 360 surveys and
Mm-hmm.
engagement surveys, you see that kind of stuff bubble to the top. It's really the people that they're leaving,
Yeah.
because I've done it. I've taken a drop in pay to be in a place that I felt supported me, where there was good communication, where I felt, from a diversity and inclusion standpoint, that I felt like I belonged, that I was part of the organization. I've taken a back pay in that, and it was well worth it,
Mm-hmm.
because that goes to my peace of mind. That goes to how I can authentically show up in the world, in the workplace. It matters. So, you know, people got to start listening to what the root is and why there's so much turnover. Because these young,
Absolutely.
especially the succession planning, these folks they got other options.
It's more than just when you look at the generations coming, people can make money. It's not just about the money. People can make money doing anything now and
Yeah.
live well, right? They want to be involved and included in the process, and they want to learn some things, and they want to add value. And so as leaders, we have to create that. So I
We do.
want to ask you this question. When we talk about presence and a lot of the things that we've been talking about so far, how has or has the virtual remote work environment changed presence, or has it affected presence, or does it really matter? I can hear someone saying, well, I work virtually, so I don't need to focus on executive presence. I don't need to do that because I work behind the computer.
Yeah.
So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts about that?
Yeah. So health information management, in our field, we've been working remotely since way before COVID.
Absolutely.
So, but here's what I think we are learning in the field, and what we've kind of learned and tried to kind of perfect, or correct. That personal engagement, personal involvement with your people is necessary. So maybe you're not running into them when you go to the restroom in the office, or when you go to the coffee area to get coffee. So those interactions that happen in between are not happening like it used to when you had the physical, hey, you're right here, and oh, look at your desk. That's a new picture. That's your kid. Oh, how not that stuff is not there. So you have to be more intentional with it in a remote environment. So I think it does matter. And the way I try to make it intentional is it's a requirement during my meetings with my teams that we have cameras on.
Mm-hmm.
It's necessary. It's a management tool that we have, and we need to make use of it. And I put that as an expectation for their teams when they're meeting with their teams, because if they can't see you and feel emotions enough through the camera,
Mm-hmm.
and they just hear blanket instructions, just
and they can't see the body language.
Right. Body language and energy is still very important for
Yes.
that to be seen. How you do show up, is important. So you influence in that way. So I have, all women actually this time on the teams that I have.
Okay.
And so we do get to talk about hair and nails and I like how you did your makeup today. It's certain things that is that surface stuff, but it's important because we can also see it opens the conversation to other things like I didn't get much sleep last night. I was up because of whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just tired this morning, so no makeup for me this morning. But those are vulnerable. Those kind of it's surface, and it may not seem like a big deal, but the fact that someone can open up to you to say they had a rough night and you're not physically able to see them in the office, but they can tell you over the camera, and you see just the fact that they didn't curl their hair. You put the pieces together. So what does it lead to? It leads to real talk conversations. So what happened? Are you okay? Oh, prayers with your family on that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. Well, what did the doctor say? Well, what's going to happen next? It opens the conversations up. So it's got to be intentional, and you got to be willing to take time to do it. I think one of my management meetings, I have these almost like coffee time type meetings with my groups. And I think were in tears pretty much the entire call because I wanted to know which one of our company pillars resonated with the most.
Mm.
And every one of them had a different story, whether it was a mom that passed, whether it was a nephew that was sick, because we're in healthcare, whether it was all of these different personal things. They had a story to tell on why they were doing their job the way they did it, why it was important to get it done on time. Like they came up with their own quality and production reasons that's not necessarily put in a brochure, that's not necessarily put as part of some sort of job requirement. Here's the elements to your job. This is the real talk, real people talking type of discussions. So healthcare matters to you because this hospital and these nurses took care of your mom when she was dying.
Wow.
And that mattered to you. And so we were in tears, honey, the whole call, because I didn't even know some of what was going on.
Yeah.
And some of that, I had no idea. And then I show myself as vulnerable because if I feel that I'm getting full, why do I have to hide that? I think we've been told as women, it's a sign of weakness. I'm nowhere near weak. So what we gonna call me?
Right.
what name are you gonna give me? Because I will tear up because I resonate with.
Because you're a human and not a robot.
Right. And I resonate with them. I resonate with what people are going through, and it pulls at my heart. And when my team is going through things, that matters to me. Oh my gosh, it matters. So that was probably a long answer to what you actually asked me, but I'm sorry. I just wanted to share.
No,
how we do it.
You shared some amazing tips for those who are virtual, who work in the virtual or remote environment, not just for presence, but for connection. That's what I heard you say. It's connection, it's relationship, it's me allowing my team to know that, hey, this work is important, but you're important too, because without you, the work wouldn't get done. So as if we're saying we're a team, right? If one person on our team is hurting, or if one person on our team is in pain, why can't we take a moment to support them or celebrate them, right? And so
Right.
that is what makes for, I believe, a great work environment. That is what makes,
Yes.
when I hear these, I see all this stuff about, oh, this is a great place to work. My first thought is, what makes it a great place to work? Why do people like working there? What are they experiencing? Like, I want to know more, because I believe that those are some things that can really help organizations become more successful if you focus on your people. Now, many times, DeLeasa, and I'm sure you probably have experienced this, when people hear that, they feel like, oh, we've got to be all soft around here. It's like, no, just be human.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Yep.
be human. I'm not asking you to turn your Fortune 500 organization into a social work, place, but just be human. And so
Be
when
human.
people can work in an environment where they feel like I'm seen, I'm heard, and people care, that to me makes for a great place to work. And the work still gets done too, and we're meeting our goals, and we're meeting the bottom line. All that makes for a great place to work. And all of that is presence. As a
It
leader,
is.
all of that is
That's
presence.
And that's the magic. That's why it's so hard. I know the scholars try to come up with definitions for some of this stuff, but it's a
Yeah.
mixture of all of. That's why it's subjective, because
Yeah.
everyone shows up with it different. My presence may look totally different than my sisters or my neighbors or my colleague, but there's presence in all of it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And the ones that I think do themselves a disservice is and others a disservice is when they don't walk in their own presence, when they don't make
Mm.
certain decisions and they decide to accept the less than,
Mm-hmm.
the you're not enough,
Mm-hmm.
you're not confident enough, you don't have the right whatever. When they accept that, you know what I mean? Because being authentic also means to, it doesn't mean that you don't have to develop and grow. My natural,
Absolutely.
and that's the thing. But here, like as a funny example, because I was telling my daughter that she's 25, and she's one of those that's just she's grown up around women that are like just her circle, her auntie, her family friends. She's seen certain things, so she's already operating like a boss in the workplace, and I love
Okay.
it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I bring her up because she talks about having to just show up and navigate differently than maybe some of her colleagues have. So there's natural instinct that she has that they
Mm-hmm.
don't, and they ask her, "How did you know to even ask that?"
Yeah.
And I love it because as an African American woman, even she's had to ask different questions. She's had to present differently than some people have. So anyway, I digress. That's my baby though.
Yes.
Um, but I bring it up because as a funny example, I chew gum. I intentionally do not chew gum on camera because I pop gum. I mean, I can pop with a rhythm. I can
Yes.
do a song with my gum, but that will distract from my presence.
Mm-hmm.
But soon as this camera is off and I'm in between meetings, I get my Trident or my Juicy Fruit and I pop my gum because that is part of what, is comforting to me. That's part of just what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to me now because I do feel like it's a song playing in my head when I'm popping it. But I know from a present standpoint, that takes away from what I am trying to show up as and who I am
Absolutely.
as an overall person, but I'm still authentic. I'm authentically who I am in the workplace and at home, but some things are appropriate, and some things are not. And you've got to decide what that is. Don't let anyone else
Mm-hmm.
decide. No one's ever said anything to me about my gum. No one's
Mm-hmm.
ever said anything to me about my nails. No one's ever said anything to me about my locks in the workplace. Even when conversations were going on about locks and hairstyles for women. No
Right.
one's ever said that to me because why? I believe is because of all of the other things I show up with, and these other things that people could have a problem with become minimal. and they're lower on the totem pole because you see that it really doesn't matter because there's so much more depth and other things that make up who I am. We're multifaceted people, and we've got to accept that in people and stop putting people in a box.
Oh, I love that. We're not one trick ponies. We're multifaceted.
Right.
Multifaceted.
Right. Right. And so we've got to believe that. We've got to accept it.
Yes.
You know, and when I see blogs on certain things, and I mention locks because I mean obviously I have locks, but I saw a lot of blogs on people trying to decide they wanted to do a certain thing, but they felt uncomfortable doing it in their workplace, whether it was going to be accepted because braids were not accepted or because whatever, you know, was not accepted. And to me, that challenges people from being who they are authentically. And they've got to make some decisions for themselves, even up to and including whether that's the right organization for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The organization chooses, but you choose as well.
They're on an interview just like you are.
Yeah. So DeLeasa, as a parting thought, as we wrap up this conversation around presence, what's one actionable tip you give our listeners to start improving their executive presence immediately? And what pitfalls or mistakes should they avoid as they're building this presence?
I think we've already talked about what you believe. So it's very important to change what you believe. But I think the other part I will say is the tip. Write down and put some real thought into this. Write down all of the things you love about yourself as just a person. What do you think your strengths are? Write it down. Don't try to frame it or put it neatly into any category, but just write down, what do I love? I love that I'm funny. I love that I'm detail oriented. Write it all down. And then a list of what you think your opportunities are. I won't say weakness. What are the opportunities? What would you like to do better? I pop my gum, so I'm not going to chew gum in the workplace. That's something I'll circle and make sure I don't do. But write those things down because you've got to get a visual of what you are, who you are, how you see yourself. And then you've got some decisions to make with what's on that list. What am I going to leverage or what do I need to do differently in order to show up different and ensure that my presence is felt, you know, that I'm solid, that, you know, when I'm at the meeting, it's a difference, that me being there was a difference. There was a difference in me being there. I think that exercise in itself opens your thoughts to a number of different things. But I think you got to take time with yourself to do it and it be meaningful. And I guess the other category I would add in there is leaders or people in general that you see that have qualities that you like. Write those down too, because maybe there's a merging in the middle there that's going to help you leverage some that are on your strength side and some that are on your opportunity side, but you can tweak and do something that maybe you can merge something there and create something different that looks more like what you want it to look like in the workplace. But my whole thing is there's no one way to define it, but you have to define what you want it to look like for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So embrace that, but in that you got to embrace all of it. Yeah. Don't act like you got to just start over from scratch and you're not bringing anything, because you are. You just got to know what it is. And it's not what people have told you it is, but what do you think it is?
Absolutely. It's your authentic, true self.
Yes. And then love on it, develop it, figure out how to make it better, you know?
Yes.
So.
Yes. Oh, that is so juicy. That is so juicy. So final question, DeLeasa, what are you reading that we should be reading?
I just started, so I'm not all the way in the book, but someone recommended this book. We were having a conversation at a women's event, and this was a book that she was reading, and it was called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Yes.
And it's by James Clear, but it talks about some of the things that we've kind of, talked about on this call. Because sometimes bad habits, we embrace and we say things like, it's just part of who I am.
Ugh.
Mama them always did it that way, or the supervisor before me did it this way, and then we adopt those things and we adapt to that. I was interested in reading it though, because I wanted to see if I could pick up some other things, because I from the military, I believe in adapting and overcoming. That was like a thing that used to be told to us all the time whenever we were facing a new challenge. So I wanted to see how this author was going to put some of that together. So like I said, I'm just starting it, but it is talking about changing habits. It is, about rethinking, like changing your belief systems and putting things in place that change your habits for better outcomes. And so I'm excited about reading it. It's not very long. And ordered it from Amazon. So
Yes.
but yeah, so I think it's going to be a good one and probably reinforce some things that we know but we don't do. Because here's the other thing. Let me say this one last.
No, come on.
The other thing is, so much of what is out there in terms of what we know to be effective, whether it's through communication, whether it's through changing a habit, whether, like even with dieting, all of the stuff that's out there to help you be better and improve and have good outcomes, all of it's effective if you do it. You got to do it.
You have to do it.
All of it works, but you've got to do it. So if walking 10,000 steps a day is going to help you lose, mathematically a pound, a week, you got to walk the 10,000 steps a day. You got to do the work. So,
and not complain about it.
Right. So change the habit. The habit is to, you put on, you hit the snooze, and I'm not going to get up and get out there and do the first 1,000 that I could do before my first meeting.
Right.
Change the habit. Get on up and just start. And then be forgiving of yourself, because at the same time, these things are it takes time to build and change. So you may not get it right that first day, or the second day, but keep trying, because the habit will develop through reinforcement. You got to keep working at it. Yeah. And then before you know it, you're looking back and don't even recall that you had a problem with that.
Absolutely.
Before.
And now you're helping somebody else develop that muscle, right?
That's it.
Oh my goodness. This has been great. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We've been chatting with DeLeasa Brown, President and CEO of Jireh Java House. Visit the show notes to see how to connect with DeLeasa. Be sure to grab a copy of Results Driven Organizations, The 4 Keys to a High Performance Workplace. You can use the link in the show notes, and grab our special gift to you for being a valuable listener. Until next time.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Results Driven Organizations podcast with Dr. Tanya Lowe. Be sure to review the show notes for the resources mentioned, and don't forget to grab your free gift available at freegiftfromtanya.com. Until next time.